I do the selling, my husband does the worrying. And so I don't worry. But here we go. If you've read Bloomberg's book, Climate of Hope, I mean, you've all read all the climate books and know everything and everything. But Bloomberg said, okay, the climate of hope, data is everything. If you don't know where you are, you can't figure out where you want to go, and you can't figure out whether you've gotten there if you don't have data. So I absolutely agree, data is really important. The trouble is, what does it all mean? I mean, who knows what all those, how to add all the numbers up. So it's a little more complicated. Of course, he had a staff of about 400. We have a staff of like 1. So the analyzing of all this stuff is the big issue. And of course, you're the ones who've got to analyze. We're going to send you all our data, and you figure out what it means and just quickly send it back. That's my future projection as to what we need to do. Here we go. Also, he said that if you're trying to decide what to do, you should decide between life and death. If something is going to cause somebody to die, then that's something that you need to work on, like heat islands, asthma, whatever, bad air. Maybe, those are the critical issues or something. And on the farm, people are going to live or die in a way as to whether we can grow enough food, we can pass it around enough to people, get it out there, figure out how to, and if we can convince people to eat it. We know that fresh fruits and vegetables make healthy people. But in our country, people don't care if they're healthy or not. They'll just go get a doctor to give them a pill and it will cure them of everything, whatever. But we know that if they eat fresh fruits and vegetables that actually grow out of the ground, they're good. So that's a big convincing to do. Data will somehow help us with this. So with climate change, it's wet is wetter, hot is hotter, dry is drier. And what do we do about all that? When we first bought the farm, there were all these big trees, and they cut them all down and put all these dwarf trees. It's a huge infrastructure deal. You have to trellis them all, you have to put in irrigation. Of course, we didn't have any wells, we didn't have any water, it's all on shale. So it all takes a little bit of figuring out. But it all comes down to data, too. What's the return on these trees? It turns out that these small trees that are close together and about 4 foot wide produce 2 or 3 times more apples per acre than those freestanding big trees that are all trunk and branches. You all know that. But we keep track. We keep track of everything. And luckily in New Jersey, everything grows great. So we want to keep it going. My husband was really into weather stations. He started with a weather station in Micronesia when we were on this dinky little island, and there were 2 guys that came up on the weather station on the single band radio and reported back to the weather island by island to Hawaii to tell the world what the weather was. They had these weather stations all over the world. They were in their little thue claws, and they sat on the ground, they drank coconut. And now, of course, we have satellites, and everybody's got weather stations in all their yards, and everybody. And so the question at our farm is, whose weather data is better? Everybody has their phone, and they're looking at Weather Underground. We're on that. We're on the Cornell weather thing. We have our own weather station that's hooked up to all this Cornell network. And it's all fantastic. And certainly, stuff. But again, what do you do with all this? So I asked Gary, well, what's good about it? What about the windmill thing? How does that work? And he goes, well, that's supposed to tell you how fast the wind is when it's coming from and wherever. And then I know what to spray here or spray there or go this way or go that way. And I go like, and he says, but it only records every, I don't know, it sounded like 2 seconds or 5 seconds or something like that, and he didn't want to wait around. So he looks at the flag on the flagpole. If it's blowing that way and it's straight out, he knows it's coming from there and it's too strong, or it's, whatever. So there's some limits to some of this data stuff. But what we need to know is over time, how does it impact? Not exactly what do I do right this minute because, we're going to do it. But for a farm community, we need to start accumulating this in a way that we can get to it, like on the internet. This is the water sensors that we use. We're very concerned about water because, as I said, we don't have any water. And we had a well at our house, which is on the farm. It was like 12 gallons a minute or something like that. And then we kept planting things and putting irrigation in. We kept smaller and smaller zones, turn this one on, turn that one off, back and forth, in and out. And so then for a couple of years, he kept the well driller really well financed by drilling wells all over the place. And he finally found one that was 120 gallons a minute. Not too good, really. But that was pretty much good enough for us. So the water thing is really important. And then, of course, in New Jersey, if there's even a remote possibility of like no rain, then everybody has to conserve. And luckily, the Farm Bureau really yells if they even remotely think that farmers should turn off their irrigation. But luckily, we do all this trickle, so it's very, very conserving and it drips on. We don't waste anything. But when we wanted to plant strawberries, having overhead was important for frost control, and so that required a little bit extra water. Energy is a big deal too. And how much energy do you use on a farm? What do you use it for? What kind of stuff is important to you? So we sold the development rights to one of our farms, and that gave us enough money to build some infrastructure because our daughters decided they were going to join us on the farm after they got their fantastic Princeton educations. They traveled all around the world. They got married and they had kids, and they said, now we want to finally come back to the farm. Yes. But so we had okay, well, instead of having our retirement account in that farm that we didn't sell the development rights to, we'll sell the development rights and put up a barn. We put up actually 2 barns. And this one was, and they both have solar panels on because, we think solar panels are great. Got to do solar panels, got to clean the air, you don't have too much carbon. And this one was, for a new CA storage, new controlled atmosphere storages. Because we've been shipping our apples to big storages in South Jersey and driving them back and forth. And we had a little storage, but it wasn't enough. He keeps planting more apples, and we got more apples. So, and then you all have figured out how to have a controlled atmosphere storage mechanism that's for small storage rooms, like twice the size of this instead of like 10 acres or whatever. So important that you all, ag agents, connect with your university engineers and your architects and all those guys, because those are the kinds of innovations that we need. I really believe that small farms, and we're almost 200 acres, we may be getting there, are where most of the action is. Those guys that have invested in 3,000 acres of corn, they're not turning the corner too quickly to plant tomatoes. This is not going to happen. So, but we're feeding the world. So things like controlled atmosphere storage. So now our apples are really great in our store all the way to the next harvest season. And we can make, so people come to our store in March because the apples in the grocery store, luckily for us, are horrible. And they don't have any good storage, and they ruin everything. And I'm glad I don't sell my apples to them because I would be embarrassed when I went in there. So, but people can come to us and get really great apples. And then we have them, and we even have now some apples that we keep all summer in order to have enough to start our cider press, keep our cider press going, because people want to drink cider all year round. And we freeze it and have cider slush. I mean, who can resist? So all that kind of technology and the data that comes off of that is that how much energy we're using and how the cold storages are working and whether we have the right bins coming in and out and whatever. Also, IPM and organic, so we've always done IPM. And we started out paying people to be the scouts, and then Rutgers took it over, and I think now we pay them again. These things happen back and forth. But it's really important to know what stuff you're looking at. And again, your sensors are really, they're all over the place. We used to have these paper things that the bugs stuck to. 5 minutes? Oh, God, I got to talk fast. Okay, But when we bought another farm and we could have organic vegetables because we could move them around, you have to keep moving them. And when we had the orchards, you can't exactly move trees. So when we bought another farm of 67 acres, we put a winery in, a grape vineyard, and have all these nice organic vegetables, which our customers absolutely only want organic vegetables, so we go like, okay. But you need to know about all these bugs and insects because New Jersey is terrible. Every bug and insect known to man wants to live here, and disease. Just like all of us, we want to live here, but as we move forward, we have to figure out how to, and it's getting worse, of course. All those invasive species are coming in. We now have these little bugs that eat our blueberries, and then they don't come out until you put your blueberries on your counter and let them warm up, and then these things crawl out. Not good. Anyway, this is cover crop. We try to cover crop everything, but we have heavy clay soil. And of course, by the time the pumpkins are over, we're cover cropping in November, and we're like, will it grow or another? Let it grows, and then of course it grows too much. We have to cut it down because it's rained all spring or whatever. But we have these indicators it's laser to make sure our tractors are plowing straight lines or going the right direction. So innovation and technology is really, really key, but you have to, be sort of a scientist to know some of this stuff and figure out how to use it. Other things about energy, we use electric golf carts because we have all solar panels, and we try not to let the guys drive their pickup trucks around, and use gasoline. And we have an NRCS infiltration fields for our cider and wine wash water stuff. Just goes back into the ground. It took us a year to convince our town not to insist that they have a big sump well and put it all in there, and then what are we going to do with it? So when we finally got the permit, that was excellent. We compost all our food waste, and so we don't put that in the trash. We're not going to go when we make compost out of it and try and use it here and there. But compost also is needs to have a lot of research. We need to know what the compost is made out of, what kind of nutrients there are in it, and then what our apple trees need and when they need it and how much they need. And so there could be a lot more work done on compost in my view. And then now we're all worried about carbon sequestration, and what does compost do for that? I mean, is that a really good thing, and should you put it on all the time? How much should you put on? You only put it in spring, don't put it in the fall, whatever. So all those kind of things we need to have your help with. We, of course, do no-till. We do raised beds, irrigation. All the water sits right in the alleys and runs off the field when we're trying to plant things. But indeed, we have a huge number. We grow like 35 different kind of apples, 30 different kind of peaches, tons of different kinds of everything. And so the idea of keeping data of all that, we have these little orange books, and the guys come in every day after they've picked everything, and they write 10 trays of lettuce, 4 trays or whatever, 50 baskets of peaches. And so this year, my daughters have put it all into the computer. They now have computers in the back, and everybody knows how to put all their data into the computer because we don't want to take it from the little orange book and then put it in the computer. I mean, it takes forever. So now, then we'll have it all in the computer, but then what does it mean? So we still have to know, and they try and figure out, well, if we had this much lettuce last year and we only planted, 50 rows, well, if we need twice as much, we're going to have to plant 100 rows or whatever. So all that kind of stuff matters, but how it relates back to climate change, still have yet to kind of get that all figured out. But what we need also is, like Sustainable Jersey has these best practices. You go on the computer, you want to make a bike trail, it tells you exactly how to make a bike trail, how much it's going to cost, who did the same thing, call the town manager from that town, and you get it figured out. We need a best practices program from all you guys to just, in English, that normal people can understand, not, like academic whatevers, socioeconomic, whatever. And that would be really, really helpful, I think, for people. And of course, all your data and your sensor stuff could just be looked up. And then, so anyway, I think that we need answers on land use, water use, air quality, production, social acceptance of the kinds of projects we're using, what cultivation projects we're doing, and of course marketing. We need your help. You can do it. And we'll listen. Thanks.
I have a comment more than a question to hand your comment about the best practices list. We just had a farmer stakeholder meeting with, I'm with NRCS in New Jersey Monday night. And that was one of the things that the farmers in that group were sharing, that even within a single agency, NRCS in a single state, New Jersey, we don't do enough of sharing amongst ourselves what worked really well. If we did a practice with your farm and you say, gee, I wish we would have done it this way, we don't go back and collect that story to then share. So I think that's so important that we, within this community of concerned about climate change and helping farmers figure out a better way to do that.
Right. I think everybody who's connected with the university, extension, government has to know we're all on a slippery slope. The funding is not going to be there. People are going to the government is not reliable. I was a mayor. I mean, I know I did, but so we're going to have to be pretty creative about how to connect with our customers, because if the customers want it, you'll get it. And why are places like NRC and all these big companies, Bristol Myers Squibb, all becoming more sustainable? Even Walmart, they changed all their light bulbs. They save $14 million a year on new light bulbs because their customers say, hey, you've got the wrong light bulbs up there. We don't like being in a non-sustainable place. We want to work for a sustainable company. All these millennials don't go to companies that aren't sustainable. They haven't got a good supply chain thing going on and all that kind of stuff. Well, farms and you all working for us have to be aware of marketing yourselves as well. I mean, I market all the time because I need those customers. I want them to come and every day. And but in order for us to succeed, you have to succeed. So you have to. We put out a newsletter 4 times a year. Now, for 43 years, having new news for 4 times a year is not that easy to come by. But you just have to make it up. I mean, you can come up with something. Good luck.